brothers who are assigned that in the congregations. The instructions are to basically give an overview of the chapters, but then pick out very specific points and help us to see how we benefit from that today. And that's what Brother Peppers did. He looked at the example of Caleb, looked at the example of Zelophehad's daughters and their loyalty, and so we can kind of see how we fit in it. How does this information benefit us today, so that it's not just dead history, that it's not just quote boring reading, but there's reasons why this information is here, and we get the sense of it today. So you brothers that have the highlights, make sure that you look for things that your congregation can benefit from. Brothers and sisters, what's happening in our lives, and how can we take this information off the printed page and use it, and how does it strengthen us today in our worship? As we continue in the book of Joshua, Brother Matthew Arthurs from the Cherry Valley congregation is going to consider Joshua some of chapter 15. He selected the theme, Jehovah is organized to accomplish His will. Brother Arthurs.
Have you ever noticed that when you are well organized, you can accomplish a great deal? And when we accomplish what we set out to do, we receive much satisfaction. When we are organized, we are really following our God Jehovah's example. Our study of the Scriptures demonstrates to us that Jehovah is organized to accomplish His will. We will learn in our Bible reading today how Jehovah organized His people by assigning a specific portion of the Promised Land to the tribe of Judah. The account is found in Joshua, the 15th chapter, and verses 1 through 12. Please turn there and follow along as I read this. That's Joshua 15, and starting with verse 1. And the lot of the tribe of the sons of Judah, by their families, came to be to the boundary of Edom, the wilderness of Zin, to the Negev at its southern end. And their southern boundary came to be from the extremity of the Salt Sea, from the bay that faces southward. And it went out southward to the ascent of Akrabim, and passed over to Zin, and went up from the south to Kadesh Barnea, and passed over to Hezron, and went up to Adar, and went around to Karka, and it passed on to Asman, and went out to the torrent valley of Egypt. And the boundary's termination proved to be at the sea. This came to be their southern boundary. And the eastern boundary was the Salt Sea, up to the end of the Jordan. And the boundary at the northern corner was at the Bay of the Sea, at the end of the Jordan. And the boundary went up to Beth Hogla, and passed over at the north to Beth Arla. And the boundary went up to the stone of Bohan, the son of Reuben. And the boundary went up to Deber, at the low plain of Achor, and turning northward to Gilgal, which is in front of the ascent of the Dunnan, which is south of the Torrent Valley. And the boundary passed over to the waters of En-Shemesh, and its termination proved to be in Rogel. And the boundary went up to the valley of the son of Hinnom, to the slope of the Jebusite at the south, that is to say, Jerusalem. And the boundary went up to the top of the mountain that faces the valley of Hinnom to the west, which is at the extremity of the low plain of Rephaim to the north. And the boundary was marked out from the top of the mountain to the spring of the waters of Nephtoah, and went out to the cities of Mount Ephron. And the boundary was marked out to Baalah, that is to say, Kiriath Jearim. And the boundary went around from Baalah westward to Mount Seir, and passed over to the slope of Mount Jearim at the north, that is to say, Keslan. And it went down to Beth-Shemesh, and passed over to Timnah, and the boundary went out to the slope of Ekron to the north. And the boundary was marked out to Shikharan, and passed over to Mount Baalah, and went out to Jabiel, and the boundary's termination proved to be at the sea. And the western boundary was at the Great Sea and its shoreland. This was the boundary all around of the sons of Judah by their families. If you'll turn to the back of the New World Translation on page 1645, you'll find a map that shows the boundaries of all the tribes of Israel. Now you'll notice that Judah has a relatively large territory at the southern end of the Promised Land. Why is this? Well, the approximate geographic location of where the tribe would be located was determined by the casting of the lot. Now, the decision of the lot proceeded directly from Jehovah. Now, the extent of the territory that was assigned to the various tribes was based on the proportionate size of the tribe. Yes, Jehovah distributed the land in a most organized way. Similarly, Jehovah has organized his modern-day servants so that they can effectively do his work for our day, that of preaching the good news of the kingdom. Jehovah's worldwide organization is physically organized into zones, branches, districts, circuits, and congregations. Through this organization, millions of Jehovah's people learn how to teach Bible truths to others so that people of all lands can be reached. Really, what a grand privilege we have to be used in this way. Yes, Jehovah is organized to accomplish his will. Let all of us remain organized in our worship of him.
Thank you, Brother Arthurs. Well, the first thing I want to do is give you 5 stars for reading and pronunciation in that chapter. That was a challenge, wasn't it? But it shows, friends, the way the New World Translation breaks down the words, the names, and the accent mark and everything, how we can learn to pronounce them properly. And Brother Arthurs did that. Now, technically, he was working on effective introductions on page 113 in the guidebook, and we marked you good on those points, Brother Arthurs. The suggestion is here, get us involved. Show us the connection between us and the subject, and that's what he did. He used a nice example or illustration. You think back to when you do something, you're organized, it gets accomplished, you have satisfaction. Well, we're copying Jehovah. He's organized for his will to be accomplished. And then he led into the Bible reading, so it was appropriate and aroused our interest. It was appropriate to the theme. He used the key words as suggested here. And it was the proper length. He moved rapidly through it. Nice pace, though, got us into the material, and that's what we want to do. No doubt if we had been of the tribe of Judah, we would have listened very keenly to the outline of the boundaries back then. And so today, we know the boundaries of our territory. Every circuit overseer, when he changes circuits, his first question is, where is my circuit? Where is Illinois 9? Where is Illinois 11? Which cities do I have? Which congregations will I be serving? See, we're excited to know where we're going to be functioning as worshipers of Jehovah. In the new system, Jehovah assigns us land or an area. We're going to be attentive to where we're going to live in the new system. So we appreciate this Bible reading, even though some of us may think, well, it's a little tedious, but really we get good benefit from this information. Now, talk number 3 is taken from the Bible Topics for Discussion.